All right, folks, this is an interesting free speech related segment. This didn't get as much news as it probably should have this week because it's not so much a Supreme Court decision as a Supreme Court non decision. So, this from SCOTUS blog: Court declines to intervene in lawsuit against Black Lives Matter organizers. So, let's take a look at this. The Supreme Court on Monday declined to intervene in a lawsuit filed by a Louisiana police officer against the leader of the Black Lives Matter movement who organized a protest at which the police officer was seriously injured. The court's denial of review in McKesson v. Doe was part of a list of orders issued from the justices' private conference last week. The justices did not add any new cases to their docket for the 2024 to 2025 term. The court currently has only 2 cases slated for argument in the upcoming term, less than half of what they had granted at this time last year for the 2023-2024 term. I guess they're could have taken it easy this cycle, right? Yeah, we'll kick back. What do we need to hear all these cases for? So it's not like we're the highest court in the land.
What are we breaking our ass? Do you actually expect there to be a civilization left to hear these rulings? Fuck it.
Plus, these are lifetime appointments. What are you going to do? Fuck it, dude. Let's go bowling, right?
Go ahead. Fire me, asshole.
Yeah, fire me. What are you going to do? At issue in McKesson was whether DeRay McKesson can be held responsible for the officer's injuries when he did not directly harm the officer himself, but instead organized the demonstration, and the officer said knew or should have known that violence would result. The case is one with which the justices were already familiar. In 2019, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit allowed the officer's lawsuit to go forward. McKesson then appealed to the Supreme Court, where he argued that the lawsuit against him was barred by the First Amendment and the Supreme Court's 1982 decision in NAACP versus Claiborne Hardware Company, which limited the NAACP's liability for a nonviolent protest that it organized. In November 2020, the court sent the case back to the Fifth Circuit with instructions to seek guidance from the Louisiana Supreme Court on whether the state law would in fact allow McKesson to be held liable. After the Louisiana Supreme Court issued an opinion indicating that, under the facts alleged by the officer, a protest leader could be sued for negligence, a divided Fifth Circuit issued a new opinion allowing the lawsuit to go forward. Doe had alleged, the majority wrote, that McKesson had, quote, organized and directed the protest in such a manner as to create an unreasonable risk that one protester would assault or batter the officer. Judge Don Willett dissented from the panel's ruling. He agreed that Doe deserves justice and should be able to sue the person who actually injured him. But he rejected the idea that Doe can sue McKesson, arguing that the theory on which the majority relied was foreclosed squarely by the Constitution and Supreme Court precedent. McKesson returned to the Supreme Court last fall, asking the judges to weigh in, but after considering the case at 7 consecutive conferences, the justices denied review. Justice Sonia Sotomayor penned a statement regarding the court's decision to deny review. She noted that since the Court of Appeals issued its decision, the Supreme Court in Counterman v. Colorado, which is a separate case, made clear that the First Amendment bars the use of an objective standard like negligence for punishing speech, and it read Claiborne and other incitement cases as demanding a showing of intent. Because the Supreme Court may turn down cases for many reasons, Sotomayor stressed, the denial of review in McKesson's case, quote, expresses no review about the merits of his claim. Moreover, she added, the Court of Appeals should give full and fair consideration to arguments regarding Counterman's impact in any future proceedings in this case. So what she's saying is there's already precedent that says that you can't use an objective standard like negligence to penalize someone who, say, organizes a protest where, depending on the size of the protest especially, but really this is true of all protests, you have no idea or control over who the fuck is going to show up.
Right. Or what they're going to do.
Right. So she's saying there's already precedent, which is a nice opinion to write, but the downside is that for the time being at least, this law still stands on the books. So in Louisiana, you can still be sued into bankruptcy, basically. If you organize a protest and somebody shows up and does something insane, you can be liable for that. That seems like a really awful law to have on the books. And by not taking this case up, yeah, I mean, it's good that they cited that this, can't be sort of broadly argued. But it's been argued in Louisiana, and by not taking this case, they are remaining that remains the law of the land for the time being.
I do not in any way, given that this court has tended to be pretty good about these kinds of issues, I'm shocked they did not take this up. How do you not take this up? This is now the law in Louisiana, Texas, and I believe it's Mississippi.
Yeah.
Is the third state?
Yeah.
So now it's effectively illegal to organize protests in those states. It's effectively illegal. Who's going to risk that? That you're opening yourself up to fiduciary liability in the event that some asshole punches somebody in the face. Like it's insane. It's insane. I don't at all understand it. And I looked at another article that got more into the lower court's reasoning. And okay, so the Claiborne case that they're talking about laid out specifically the circumstances under which you could be held liable for something that happened at a protest that you organized. And it's extremely narrow and specific.
Right,
it's things that you would expect. Like you have to walk up to the guy and say, hey, you see that guy over there? Hit him. Right. It's that kind of thing that you could be held liable for. They just decided that Claiborne should not be considered exhaustive and added their own circumstances under which you could be held liable. That is how weak this judgment is. It's an insane judgment, adding to our ongoing list of demonstrations of the idea that lawyers are by definition intelligent people. It seems increasingly to be a myth. It might be a counterfactual, actually, because we're seeing such a long list of dumb lawyers lately.
And why wouldn't you want to overturn this? Like, I understand what Sotomayor wrote there, but why wouldn't you take it up and shoot it down? Yeah.
It's so clearly dangerous. And now, of course, I don't know how true this is because it's Vox. According to them, it's a MAGA-appointed panel of judges. Even so, don't you realize how this could be used against you? I mean, Trump loved him a rally. Like, what are you talking? Like, how did they even decide that? And how could the Supreme Court not see how fucking dangerous that is to allow a large swath of the country to live under that law for the time being? I don't understand how they did not take this up.
Yeah. Yeah. And the chilling effect of this is just going to be insane because, why would you organize any kind of mass demonstration in any of these three states now? Why would you? Because don't forget, the more effective the protest is, the more people show up, the more likely somebody is going to do something they shouldn't. Talk about saboteurs, right? Agent provocateurs in the crowd. Now, if you want to sabotage someone's movement, you know that they can be sued into bankruptcy. An organization can be sued out of existence if something goes wrong at the protest. Yeah, send some guys in there, cause trouble.
Sure,
right?
Start shit.
Mob style. Start shit up. You ruin the organization. Like, it's so clearly insane. It's the most easily manipulated, easily abused law, right? For bad faith actors to infiltrate a movement and cause trouble. And even assuming none of that, most large protests you go to, there are at least skirmishes with the cops. Thankfully, not all of them turn violent, but somebody mixes it up with somebody at these things, right? It's very rare you have a large protest gathering of like a politically charged group, especially now counter protesters show up.
And I'm not. From what I've witnessed, it's the cops. Like the cops go and they start shoving people.
Right.
And I'm not saying it never happens. I've never seen somebody walk up and attack the cop. When there have been scuffles, it's because the cops did that to me I wasn't even at the protest at an Iraq war protest back in the day. I was trying to get to a rehearsal and they were just freaking putting their hands on anybody.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, there's a lot of that too. Even assuming none of that, counter protester shows up. Two guys get into it. Cop tries to get in the middle of them. The cop gets hit. They say you assaulted an officer. This doesn't even go for violence against the cops. I mean, this is, a protest turns chaotic. A few guys get violent. One person gets violent. Now the organizer is on the hook for that. How could anybody who's ever participated in any of these events knows how easy it is for little things around the edges like that to go wrong. You really have no control over it. That's why the argument of negligence doesn't even make any sense. What do you mean negligence? You can't account for every single person that shows up. You can't account for every square inch of the action. Some of these marches stretch back blocks. What, somebody gets into a fight 3 blocks behind the leader, they're on the hook for that now? Personally, it's insane. It's insane. And how easy would this be to just take up and swat down? What Sotomayor suggests in her opinion is that it'd be pretty easy to do that.
Right. Yeah. You just uphold prior precedents. You wouldn't even have to come up with a new ruling. You would just say Claiborne precludes this kind of a suit, and that's it.
That's it. Bang.
I still have to do part 3 of my Louisiana trilogy, but this is just one more thing that's going to kill the culture there, because that's really what I've witnessed, and it's partly Katrina. Obviously, is kind of the original thing that made a lot of the people who made particularly New Orleans special left after Katrina.
Right.
But then you had COVID, obviously, because New Orleans is this deep blue city in a deep red area.
Right.
So all the performers went to the neighboring states that stayed open.
Right.
And they never came back because there were a lot of challenges to living there. And that's what happened after Katrina. A lot of people moved to neighboring states, saw that the city services were better, the education system was better, and they just never went back. It looks like that happened with a lot of the performers. And I think the Roe v. Wade decision was another nail in the coffin, because who wants to live in a place with some of the most draconian abortion laws? And now you have this. So like this last time that I was there, when I would go to the venues, when I would go to places, it was like you had a remnant of the community and culture that used to be there. And what was really telling was most of them were older. Most of them were like 50 or older when you would go to these. Like when I went to the prison thing, when I went to the prison, mass incarceration event, it was all older people, man. It wasn't really, what young person wants to move to a place with draconian abortion laws, and now you can't organize a protest, especially someone in the arts. Like, why would you move there?
Well, also, you think about it in the context of that crime bill they just passed. Not only are you more likely to get in trouble, but you're more likely to be fucked as hard as you've ever been fucked.
To be working on the receiving end.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's sad. It's sad. Like that. It's, that was one of the most special places on earth. As anybody who was there before all this will tell you, it was just such an amazing place. And now all the real people left, and all you got now is like, oh yeah, come on into Marie Laveau's, I guarantee. Fucking guy is from Patterson.
Right. Yeah. Theme park. It's basically a theme park, is what it sounds like.
It's a bunch of bullshit. Yeah. It's just man, the real thing got killed, and this is just one more nail in the coffin.
Please clap.